You're listening to Last Word Radio, where you get the last word.
Welcome to the Fourth Line Podcast, part of the Alberta Podcast Network, powered by ATB Financial. This is February the 19th, 2018. With you today is myself, Carl. The always wonderful Joel is now hanging out, tired after a busy day of moving into his house. So we've got a great replacement. Nick Seguin, managing editor of Wings Nation, is back with us again. Nick, welcome back.
Thank you. It's great to be back. Your second favorite Red Wings fan is back with you on the podcast.
Yeah, and you've got your Red Wings attire so that I don't forget who you cheer for.
Exactly. Yeah. I don't want you to be confused here.
I really should have just donned my Sakic jersey so that you were reminded which team was higher in the standings.
I was wearing my Yzerman jersey last night, actually, so I should have just left that on.
Yeah, it's fine. I understand your desire to wear clean clothes. You don't have to be that committed to the cause coming on the show, but we appreciate the effort. We appreciate that you would.
Yeah, anytime. I mean, I've always got some Red Wings clothes on in one way or another.
Really? Like, what percentage
Hats,
of the hats? Yeah.
T-shirt, sweater. I mean, I don't wear it to work. They wouldn't be okay with that, but outside of work, I've got something on.
There you go. That's good to know. So that's the kind of level I don't have, especially the, last year, it was a little shameful to wear Avalanche gear every single day. So, well,
I think Detroit's probably heading in that direction too. So
that's fair.
That might be me next year.
Yeah. Well, and we'll get to that. We'll see. I know Joel sent along some of his thoughts, and we'll get to those when the time is appropriate. But let's get into some of the news of the week. But first, let's remind everyone about the fine folks at ATB Financial. They are the supporters of the Alberta Podcast Network and as well this show. So if you head over to atb.com/listens, you'll be able to find out everything that you need to know about ATB. You can talk to them, find out how they can help you with your banking needs. And you should do that. You should definitely head over there and talk to them and find out how they can help you. So, Nick, the trade deadline is coming up rapidly. It seems like it's taken a while to get to this point, but it's soon. Next Monday. This is the last episode we will record before. So next week we'll go through all the relevant trades, which between now and then will probably be about 4, maybe 5 relevant trades. So we'll break those all down and forget everyone who was traded for a 5th round pick. So there's been some movement. I was really hoping that there'd be a little bit more today. There's things brewing all over the league. So let's start with some of the trades that did happen. There was 4 trades that have happened since we were last with you. And the first one was a kind of a big deal that, I don't know, more so for the money than the relevance of the trade. But Dion Phaneuf headed to the Ottawa Senators as well as Nate Thompson. No, Dion is an Ottawa
the other
Senator.
way.
Yeah. Oh, it's a good thing one of us is paying attention. Dion heading from Ottawa over to LA with Nate Thompson in exchange for Marian Gaborik and Nick Shore, as well as Senators are retaining 25% of Dion's $7 million salary. What do you think? What was your first thought on this deal going down for Ottawa and the Kings?
So first of all, I think we can agree this is a Phaneuf for Gaborik trade, right? I've never even heard of those other two guys.
Yeah, that is 100% what this comes down to.
It's really, that's what the big trade is. The other thing I thought was interesting was the salary retention. There's no way that Phaneuf would be traded twice on that same contract without somebody holding back some salary somewhere. The Leafs got off scot-free from it, so, I mean, good on them, but the Sens, no such luck. I don't know, it was kind of a random trade. It was weird. It's not one that I saw coming.
Well, and what I don't understand about it is, to me, I look at it, I'm like, okay, the only reason I could see Dion getting moved is to get out from that salary to get something for the future. In retaining 25%, they're only getting $400,000 in cap relief in Gaborik. So they got slightly cheaper, and like honestly for the Sens into next year, an irrelevant amount cheaper and older. So it's a team like,
yep,
they got nothing really for the future, and I don't understand it for the Senators' point of view in the slightest. I could have seen them retain that and then get a pick back or something like that, but it's just, I don't know. Well, Dion's a good piece.
I thought he was a good piece too, and I mean, their defense outside of Erik Karlsson wasn't much to write home about outside of Phaneuf anyways. But what this comes down to, it's not about the salary cap, right? The Sens are saving actual dollars on this trade. I think Gaborik's set to make like $3 or $4 million less in actual salary, not cap hit, actual salary, less than Phaneuf in the next 3 years. So they're saving money there.
Yeah, there is a slight amount of decline in his deal. Dion's doesn't really taper off that much.
No.
So for next year, Dion is being paid $4.875 by LA, Gaborik $4.5. So even next year, it's only $300,000. It's into 2019 and 20 that there's a real benefit there. And then really, who's excited about saving money when you're paying 38-year-old Marian Gaborik $3 million to sit on your IR?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be. That's for sure. And then, like, I don't know. I don't know what the Sens are after right now. I'm not sure what they're doing. They've been involved in all sorts of trade rumors now too, with Mike Hoffman and Derek Brassard, our names floating out. And then, of course, there's the big one, right? Like Erik Karlsson. Kypreos said again this weekend that he would not be surprised to see Karlsson moved in the next 9 days. And if you're not going to pay the man after next year, then trade him.
Absolutely, yeah. We've said that on this show that you need to, and any team would love to add an Erik Karlsson. So I think to say, which team should he go to? Any team is the answer to that question.
But I like, why would you not pay Erik Karlsson? This is what I don't get about the Senators. Why would you not? Because he's one of the best defensemen in the league, arguably the best. And you don't want to pay him what he's going to ask, so you part ways. He's one of the only good things this team has going for them.
Well, and even if you look at it, this deal will be up when he's 28. You sign him to an 8-year deal by 36. I'm fine having a 36-year-old Erik Karlsson on my team, because if you haven't turned this ship around in 8 seasons, there's much bigger problems going on as well. So if money's the issue, they need to ask a lot of questions.
Yeah, I agree. I think the Senators are funny because last year on their playoff run, everyone was saying they're not this good. They're pretty lucky. Even Sens fans weren't really arguing it. They were just kind of like, shut up and let us enjoy this.
Right, which they have every right to do that, for sure.
Yeah, totally. But they weren't even really fighting it. And then this year, I think, it's really starting to show itself how much they overperformed. Are they this bad? I don't know. I mean, they're certainly getting worse with some of the moves that they're making, but I don't know.
Yeah, I'd say they're about halfway, but I'd say they're probably like a 20th worst team in the league is what the talent on this team should be. They're not what they were last year. They're not what they are this year. So, somewhere in that middle ground, but yeah, lots going on there in Ottawa. And I definitely, someone else will be moved by the end of this trade deadline. Who knows? Maybe, once Alexander Burrows is back from his suspension, they'll be able to find a way to move him. Well, I guess he won't be back till before. So I don't know. I don't think I've ever seen a suspended player get traded, but
yeah, I don't know if that's a thing. I'm sure it could happen.
I'm sure you're allowed to. They'll let them play in an all-star game. I'm sure you can trade them.
Yeah, that's right.
So yeah, lots to go on in Ottawa. And I personally doubt that they'll trade Karlsson in the next week. I can't see it. There's so few teams that would be, the cap situations are tight right now, so you'd have to be taking on money. This seems like a move that happens at the draft more so than at the deadline.
Yeah, totally agree. Feels more like an off-season move, like a Subban for Weber kind of move.
Yeah, which I don't know. Maybe go call it Montreal. I'm sure they'd love to have Erik Karlsson for Shea Weber. Get out of that deal.
Yeah.
Second trade that happened, which involves Joel's Maple Leafs. So you get to do your best Joel impression in sharing his thoughts on the Nikita Soshnikov trade, traded to St. Louis for a 2019 fourth-round pick, the exact kind of trade we will not be talking about on next week's show unless it involves Joel's Maple Leafs or my Colorado Avalanche. So what do you think? Soshnikov is a guy, to me, that I always thought there was more for him. Some injury problems, some just getting on the ice problems for him. 4 games this year, not a whole lot to do for him, but did very well with the Marlies in the A. So I think a 4th-round pick is a great price for that for the Blues, especially a 2019 pick. Kind of moved that out a little bit. Leafs kind of left themselves a situation. That's all they could get, though. So great high upside pickup for the Blues.
Yeah, I think, I don't know, like there just wasn't room for him on the Leafs roster, right? There's what could they do with him? Kapanen played himself into a 4th-line role to the point where Matt Martin has been a healthy scratch for how many games, and we know how much that team loves Matt Martin. So where does Soshnikov fit in? There's my Joel impression right there.
You nailed it. Let's continue that. Which country would you say Nikita Soshnikov is from?
Nikita Soshnikov is from Russia.
That sounds like a good bet. Anyways, you continue. I haven't looked it up, but we'll
I thought you knew the answer to that.
No, he is Russian. You're right.
Yeah, he's Russian, right? Yeah. I figured he was. I think they signed him out of the KHL last year.
Yeah, that would be correct.
Agent. Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. He didn't have a spot on this team. Then he got hurt. He was playing way too well in the AHL for people to think that he was still injured. So when they put him,
not well enough for Lou to somehow get on the IR though.
I don't get how this guy gets away with all he was overperforming in the AHL and then suddenly he's still hurt for now. And then they traded him.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Has he played for the Blues yet? When did that? I can't remember when this deal happened.
So the deal went down on February 15th. And he has not, as of yet, played from what it looks like. So,
but I'm sure there's visa issues and stuff. If I'm the Leafs, I'm happy that I got something for him. You know, a 4th-round pick is a good deal for the Blues, but the Leafs were getting nothing out of him. So you might as well get something, especially if you don't have a spot for him in your lineup.
Well, and this is something that the Leafs are going to have more and more of a problem with because they have Josh Levo, who's in the same situation. He's a guy who, for all rights, should be on an NHL roster, and they have so many NHL quality forwards that they can't. So, I'll be interested to see. I would not be surprised to see, and there's rumors all over the place. And maybe we'll get to one of them right now. Rumors all over the place of the Leafs looking for defensemen. And so, you know, I could see a Levo for a defenseman kind of move, a NHL body for an NHL body coming up to this deadline. But if not, we'll be in the same situation next year when Josh Levo is on the IR for no apparent reason and gets traded for a 4th-round pick. So,
yeah, but you know what? Don't feel bad for the Leafs. These are good problems.
Yeah, I think any team would love to have that.
Yeah. Oh, I have too much talent. Darn. I guess I'll trade some of it away for draft picks.
Yeah, I guess I'll get a mediocre draft pick for it. Oh, well.
Yeah.
So your Detroit Red Wings, aforementioned, had a game last night in which they were defeated. And Joel was a little happy about that. I'm sure he was. As he should be. But there was some rumors coming out today about a potential trade, and there's been rumors abound about defensemen from the Red Wings being moved. Today's rumor involved Luke Glendening potentially being moved to Toronto. What's the story there?
Yeah, so this actually was a story that broke a couple days ago. I can't remember who initially tweeted it out, but it was that the Red Wings were taking calls on Luke Glendening from the Dallas Stars and the Toronto Maple Leafs. And then 10 minutes later it was tweeted like, no, actually the Stars didn't have any interest. But so the Leafs are looking for a 4th-line centerman because Mike Babcock apparently is not very hot on Dominic Moore. Doesn't like him very much.
As he shouldn't be.
As he shouldn't be. But there is one guy that Mike Babcock loves, and that's Luke Glendening, who's the 4th-line center for the Detroit Red Wings. Glendening came into the league under Babcock in, I think it was 2014-15. Glendening was undrafted, signed to an entry-level contract out of college. He played for Michigan and played his way through the Griffins on a playoff run and eventually made it onto the Red Wings. Babcock loved him. The dude is a hard worker. He's a hard skater. He's a grinder. He plays against good quality competition. He's a master in the face-off circle. So Babcock loves him. The only problem with Luke Glendening is that Detroit just extended him last year. I believe it was a 4-year contract worth $1.8 million per year. And I'm just double checking that.
Correct. I got it.
4 years. 4 years for $1.8 million a year. It's a little steep for a fourth line center. And if you're okay with the cap hit, you can't be okay with the term. But Mike Babcock loves him, so the Leafs are calling on him. And today it was reported by Frank Saravalli of TSN that Toronto had offered a 5th-round pick. Detroit countered with a 2nd-round pick. And they're negotiating currently.
Right.
So they'll probably end up somewhere in the middle.
So do you think that this happens? We've now heard both sides value on this. Do you think they meet in the middle, get something done?
I think it all hinges on how much Detroit wants to part with him. I think it's going to happen at this point if conversations are this deep that they're just kind of trying to decide what round of a draft pick they're going to send over. I think it'll probably happen. And I think that's a good thing for both sides, to be honest with you.
So you think that having, bring in Glendening, and obviously Babcock loves him, and there have been so many moments this year that the Leafs lineup has been kind of Babcock's has these players he loves, right? You saw Matt Martin. We continue to see Roman Polak in the lineup for some reason. Babcock loves him.
Leo Komarov,
exactly. Took forever for him to get off the Kadri Marleau line, and now you put Mitch Marner there, and shockingly, it's a great line again.
Yep.
Do you think we will have the same problems where come the end of this year, into next year, Leafs fans will hate the fact that Luke Glendening is Babcock's poster boy, or will he actually be good enough to be a contributor to this team?
They'll hate it. Because here's what Mike Babcock will do in that situation. Final 2 minutes of the game, whether the Leafs are winning or losing, he will put Luke Glendening on for a face-off, no matter what. And if they're losing, then Leafs fans are going to be like, why wouldn't you put Austin Matthews on the ice? You need an extra goal. But it's a defensive zone face-off, and Luke Glendening's his guy to do that. That's what's going to happen if this deal goes through. They're going to hate Glendening.
Well, Joel, sorry about that. Sorry about your pending Luke Glendening late third period draw. I hope he wins it and then gets off the ice immediately for Austin Matthews. And I'm sure everyone else doesn't care.
I sent a tweet about it today, and Joel just replied to me, no.
I believe I told him that, we were going to talk about this. I was like, Nick seems excited to talk about Glendening. And this was his official reaction. Nick should be excited to have the highest cap hit in the league and be in the bottom 5. So we know how he feels about Red Wings fans being excited about Glendening being parted ways with.
Yeah, it's true. The Wings are in a terrible spot when it comes to the cap, but that's exactly why they should move a guy like Glendening. Is his contract the worst on this roster? No, but you got to start somewhere. You got to do something.
Exactly. That's a piece that could move, right? It's a movable piece. So let's camp on the Wings for a little bit. There's the big piece rumored to go, and I see zero reason why he won't. Mike Green should be gone by next week. Where do you see him going? Lots of teams out there looking for defensemen. We talked about Toronto. Lots of talk about him. I would in no way be surprised if that's where he went. And to a degree, I would kind of think that is where, if I had to pick one team, I would probably pick Toronto as the future home of Mike Green. What do you think? What do you think he'll go to? What kind of return do you think the Red Wings should be expecting?
I think the Red Wings should expect a first-round pick in return, no matter what. Or no matter where he goes, he'll probably draw a first round. But here's the thing about these rentals at the deadline is that he's likely going to a contender. So a first round pick it's going to be a late first round pick, no matter where he goes. Could I see him going to Toronto? Yeah, absolutely. And I wouldn't be surprised if Toronto extended him for 2 or 3 years either. That could, it could be part of a Luke Glendening deal too, as a package. I could see him going to Tampa. I know Tampa's had considerable interest in him. So I could see that happening. Although if I'm Tampa, I'm going after Erik Karlsson first. And once that becomes not a possibility, then you go after Mike Green. And the third team I could see him going to is Washington, because I think they need that help on the blue line for their run. And I could see him extending there too.
Yeah, well, obviously, different coach situation there from the last time he was in, switching out Bruce Boudreau for Barry Trotz, but well known to the organization. He was only there, 3 years ago, signed with Detroit for his current deal. So I think a lot of these teams, Tampa being the exception, I'm not sure if he would extend there. But the Leafs, Caps, definitely a couple situations where they are looking for moves like that. Another one that I saw you tweeting out earlier today, or yesterday rather, the goaltending situation in Detroit. It seems like every time you come on, we ask you, who is the goaltender in Detroit? And every single time it's a different answer. So we are at the situation where the Red Wings are out of contention. They have Petr Mrazek. This is last year on this deal. Still a restricted free agent, so, controllable into the future. Jimmy Howard, 1 year left after this. And to me, I'm still in the camp where I would rather have Petr Mrazek as my goaltender for this team. Howard's done well for himself this year, but very comparable numbers from both of them. So what do you think happens here? It seems like a situation that they keep hoping that someone will solve for them by overpaying for Mrazek, and it hasn't happened. They've still got him. So what do you think? What's going to happen here?
Honestly, with what's happened with Philadelphia this weekend, I think they're probably going to end up trading Mrazek. Is it the right thing to do? I honestly don't know. So I'm just looking at my tweet from last night. I did a poll. This season, 2017-18, Petr Mrazek has a .910 save percentage and a .289 goals against average. Jimmy Howard has a .910 save percentage and a .283 goals against average. So who do you keep? Who do you trade? They're statistically, they're very similar. The difference is in their age, their experience, and their contracts. So Mrazek's making $4 million right now, and that contract's up at the end of the year. He's not going to take a paid decrease, and he's likely not going to sign for the same. So he's going to look for a raise, which Detroit's not going to give him. So maybe the best move is to trade Mrazek, get a good return on him, and let him flourish somewhere else, somewhere that can pay him.
Well, and now that, in looking at a Red Wings team that still had a chance into the future, Petr Mrazek is the goaltender that I think you should have stuck with. However, when you're at a situation like this, where Petr Mrazek, already 26 years old, which is a little surprising to me. So this is a goalie that, you extend him. Is this the last year that he has left on his? I'm not sure on that. Is this, do you know?
Mrazek?
Yeah.
Mrazek, this is the last year of his $4 million contract.
But until he's a UFA. Do you know how many more years? Okay.
Yeah, he's an RFA at the end of this year.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So not long left until, of controllable term for him. And so for me, I look at it this is neither of these are the goaltender the Red Wings will be using when they are competitive again. And so, no. Do you have a thought on that?
Well, I was just talking about the future. Mrazek was supposed to be the future. Jimmy Howard is not the future. He's kind of the present, the tail end of the present. But so you trade Howard or you trade Mrazek away, then what do you have once Howard's contract's up after next year? Maybe you extend him another 2 years, but Jared Coro is not going to be your starting goalie for the next 6 years. So who is it? I don't know. They've got a couple good prospects, but it's so hard to predict goalie prospects.
Well, for sure. For me, I look at it like if you're going to be bad, you have you have time to figure out who you're going to bring in, find someone, trade for some goaltender prospects. There's lots of them out there. Try to develop one. And if you have terrible goaltending until you're good, that doesn't hurt you with the old tank. It doesn't help the fans. No one's going to be happy about it. But if you're trying to be bad to get better, not having a good goalie is a great way to do it. Yeah,
the problem is that Detroit's not doing that. They're not trying to be bad in order to be good. They think that they know they can't compete for a cup now, but they want to try and be competitive.
Right. And do you think some of that comes from the fact that they just opened a brand new arena and they're, you want to put fans in there, you want to get people in there? Is that a big part of why they're trying to maintain competition?
Oh, 100%. For sure. And they're already kind of feeling the effects of being bad unintentionally this year. Like, you watch games on TV, like you guys or Joel probably saw it last night. Not all the seats are filled. People aren't in their seats watching the game. And I think that's a result of the team's play on the ice. It's just not exciting.
Well, and we've really never seen what Detroit, well, I guess we have seen, but it's been so long since we've seen what Detroit fans will do when they're not good, right? Like, we've seen playoff team after playoff team for so long. Who knows what it's like what fans will put up with and still attend, right? So
Red Wings fans have no idea the misery that we're going to go through over the next few years. They think it's bad now, and everyone's calling for the team to tank. But once we tank, and you don't get the first round pick this year, and you don't get the first round pick next year, it's going to start to feel like Edmonton. And nobody wants that.
No, that is not something that feels good in the slightest. So
no.
Any pieces from Detroit that you think that we haven't talked about that you think will move out at the deadline here?
Nothing that I think is realistic. We talked about Green. We talked about Glendening. We talked about the goalies. I think other than that, there's, bottom pair defenseman, Xavier Ouellet. He's probably going to be gone, but he barely plays anymore. Other than that, I think everything else is a pipe dream. I think at the draft, they'll move one of Nyquist or Tatar, probably Nyquist. And then I don't know what they're going to do about Andreas Athanasiou, but it wouldn't surprise me to see them trade his rights too.
Yeah, he was a guy that I think there was a lot of people obviously wanted them to trade him, but there wasn't much actual action on that when in the offseason when he was unsigned. So you mentioned the goaltenders. Philadelphia has now lost both of their their 1A, 1B goalies in Michael Neuwirth, Brian Elliott. Some extended time there, and this is a team right on the cusp of the playoff. As so many teams are in that Metro division, it seems like everyone except for the Caps and the Pens is either in or out of the playoffs every single day. It's constantly changing. And this is, you need goaltending. That's a big piece of making the playoff run. I'm not an expert, but you do need someone in net, I believe.
I think you're right, Carl. Because otherwise the team could just score goals, right?
Yeah. I guess you could just pull them. I've tried that in the old NHL. It doesn't work. You don't win games playing 6-on-5 the entire time.
Yeah, fair enough.
So the Flyers are currently sitting with 70 points, tied with the Devils, 6 points up on the New York Islanders. They're the last team not in the playoffs. So 64 points, 6-point lead on the Islanders. So they've got, a buffer, but that can fall apart very quickly if you go on a run. Lots of teams with, out of the playoffs with potential goaltending. I look at my team and we'll get to the Avalanche and some of their woes in a second here, but this is a team that was in the playoffs and a push up until 2 weeks ago when they lost Nathan MacKinnon, and now they're sitting 5 points back, and it's looking like playoffs are an afterthought for them. Do I looked at that, seeing the Flyers injuries, and I thought, what? Jonathan Bernier is a guy that I would most certainly see them calling on. He's been good at times this year. He's also been terrible at times this year, and we see year after year what Philadelphia can do to goaltenders. Good goalie after good goalie's gone in there and played terribly. So taking a bad goalie and shoving him in there might not be the smartest move for them, but that's a guy who I could see them making a move for. Is there anyone else that kind of sticks out to you as a goaltender that they could go up and pick up? Because, we've seen lots of rumors on the New York Rangers. I personally would be shocked to see the Rangers trade Mr. Henrik Lundqvist to the Flyers, but you'll see people talking about it. So let's just put a pin in it right now.
Yeah, I think no, that would be crazy. I'm pretty sure Lundqvist came out and said, like, I'm in it for the long haul, but who knows? I mean, the guy deserves a cup. But other goalies out there, I mean, Bernier was a good one. I hadn't thought about him, really. I think Toronto might be another team who would have some goalies, because if you look at the Marlies, both Calvin Pickard and Sparks, I can't remember what his first name is right now, are both having amazing seasons in the AHL and probably deserve to be on an NHL team, so that might be a good fit for a team looking for a goalie.
Other than that, there aren't really. This is the problem. Most teams that are not a playoff team don't have good goaltending, right? So you look at Detroit; they're a team that has been getting good goaltending, has pieces that can move. If you go through the list of other teams, kind of everyone who's hit the elimination station right now, the Panthers, could I see them moving a James Reimer? Potentially, he could be a guy who could be on the move, but they picked him up, extended him long term because Roberto Luongo's days are numbered, right? He's not someone, so they're holding on to him long term. Detroit, mentioned them. Montreal's already moved out Al Montoya. No one's going to pick up Antti Niemi. Buffalo's holding on to Robin Lehner. Edmonton, nope. Vancouver and Arizona, that's not going to happen either. So for me, there's not a lot of people, and everyone else is still in the playoff hunt, and you want to hold on to that backup. These are the teams that could potentially be looking to add someone. So, I don't really see anyone outside of those three being, Toronto with the guys in the A, Bernier, Detroit. Those are who I'd be looking at for a potential move for the Flyers.
I think those are the best three, unless they're willing to part with one of Elliott or Neuwirth, which I'm not sure that they are. I don't follow the Flyers that closely. But unless you're willing to part with them, probably not.
Yeah, so lots of other moves coming. There was lots of talk this week. There was a trade today. You mentioned the Washington Capitals wanting to make a move for some defensemen, and Chicago Blackhawks continually falling apart. They traded Michael Kempny to the Washington Capitals for a third round pick. He is a defenseman that a lot of people have not heard of. I recognize the name when the name came through the wire today. But if looking at what he brings to this team, he's a guy 27 years old with actually quite good. This is only his second year in the league, so 27 years old, second year in the league. So nothing to get crazy excited about, but I think a third round pick is a good value back for Chicago. He's had, quality possession metrics throughout this season. And a good piece, a low risk piece that the Capitals can bring in. A third round pick, you're not going to lose your mind over that. This is kind of those kinds of moves that we'll start to see some teams make. And I think getting out ahead of it, the Capitals kind of set themselves up so that they know, what they have into next year. He's a guy, $900,000 UFA after this season. So nothing crazy for them, no long-term commitment, but a third round pick's a pretty good value for that.
Yeah, I think the Caps need whatever help they can get on defense. I'm still shocked that they let Nate Schmidt walk to Vegas at the expansion draft. I guess he didn't walk, but they left him unprotected because he was awesome in the playoffs last year. But yeah, I think they could definitely use the help on the blue line. I was just looking at Chicago's lineup. I don't even recognize half these defensemen anymore.
Yeah, it's Duncan Keith, Brent Seabrook, and others.
And others. Yeah. So this team is, even their forwards are starting to get a little unrecognizable. I think the Blackhawks days are over right now.
Yeah, and there are, a fair amount of pieces that can be moved. They have That's part of the joys of the Chicago Blackhawks. They can't afford to sign anyone long term, so they have a lot of flexibility when it comes to, Patrick Sharp. Maybe they can convince someone for that. Tommy Wingles, Lance Boma. Those are all players that could be on the move, and we will see in the next week. I think, any piece that's not tied down, if you're selling, you should be willing to move for 5th, 6th, 7th, a conditional 7th, like the Avalanche did, where they retained salary on Jarome Iginla and sent a conditional 7th and never made it. I think if you can, pay that, that's fine. Whatever it takes some of these days.
Yeah.
All right, Nick, it is time for the Elimination Station. Here we go.
Elimination Station.
So we have, in the last few weeks, eliminated many teams. Last week we took 2 out. The Chicago Blackhawks, Edmonton Oilers have both been eliminated. To get everyone up to speed, the Elimination Station, every week we take one team and say, you are done. You are out of the playoffs. It is over for you. So up until now, the Chicago Blackhawks, Edmonton Oilers, Florida Panthers, Detroit Red Wings, Montreal, Ottawa, Arizona, Buffalo have all been eliminated. Did I miss a team?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
You said Vancouver?
Yeah. Florida, Chicago, Detroit, Edmonton, Vancouver, Ottawa, Montreal, Buffalo, Arizona have all been eliminated, which leaves us with 22 teams. 6 of those teams will not make the playoffs, which begs the question, Nick, of the teams left, which one do you think is least likely to make the playoffs?
So I think we are both going to agree with this. You brought it up first, but I think it's going to be the one that loses Rick Nash and Ryan McDonough in the next week, the New York Rangers.
Yeah, I think if your GM and president come out and write a letter saying, we're playing for next year, we can safely put you in the Elimination Station and say, you're playing for next year. So Joel and I talked about this a little bit last week. So let's get your thoughts on what you should do with the New York Rangers moving forward. That's the goal of this, to give some advice, to kind of say what to do. You mentioned the fact Henrik Lundqvist is in it for the long haul. However, I find that the Rangers might be doing everything in their power to upset him. Coach Alain Vigneault came out this week and said that this team was a goaltender away from getting on a roll, which when you have one of the greatest goaltenders of this generation, you should probably not throw him under the bus like that. Like, maybe have a little bit of respect to not go to the media and say, hey, maybe if Hank was a little better, we wouldn't suck so much. That maybe don't do that. And after yesterday's game where he gave up 7 goals after giving up 5 the day before, Henrik's quote was, it's terrible, absolutely terrible. You live for this. It means so much to all of us that when you don't win, when you don't get the result, you just have to work really hard to get that feeling that you need in the room to play your best. It's not a good feeling right now. And I think that's a fair statement. Much like the Detroit Red Wings, these New York Rangers have been good for a long time, and a lot of players on this team have been good for a long time. Henrik Lundqvist has been great for a long time. And so when you start to see this falling apart, they don't know how to handle it. They don't know what to do with it. And you start to see these players getting a little upset about it, which is understandable. So to fix the Rangers into the future, what do? You mentioned the guys being traded. What is your first step? What do you do this year into the draft?
I think you try and get as high of a pick as you can. And I think you just pick the best available player at that spot. I think that's a good first step. But these guys don't really have a superstar. I'm just looking at their roster right now, and they do have a lot of injuries. But yeah, they don't have like a superstar top line center. It's probably a good place to start for them.
Yeah, so last year, they did get Elias Andersson, center out of Sweden.
Yeah,
number 7,
that's right.
From in the Derek Stepan trade. So, they were already looking forward into next year, or into the future last year in trading Derek Stepan. I think they kind of smelled that this was coming, which is, as a fan of the New York Rangers, I would be very happy that we're not in a situation like so many teams get in where they're like, well, I guess we're here now, and they haven't put any thought into the future of a rebuild.
Yeah. I mean, they're certainly putting it in now. But, their blue line, it's not terrible, especially once you get Kevin Shattenkirk back into it. But I guess if you're losing Ryan McDonough, they've also got Mark Stahl, who's injured. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to do to fix this team.
Yeah, I think that this falls into the situation that so many teams get into where you want just the best players because there's so many holes that you need. What's different about this is they have their best trade piece. It is difficult for them to find someone for. The trade market for goaltenders is not the greatest, right? You saw, Freddie Anderson got traded for a first last year, and that was a young goaltender that they were able to sign to an extension. Henrik, if he were to be traded, sure, he could net a first, but there's not many teams in that looking for him, and he's said he doesn't want to go. So do you think, trade deadline into next year, does he retire as a Ranger? Like lifelong New York Ranger?
I think so. I think if he's going to make it through what they're doing to him right now, he's probably in it till the end. He's got a full no-move clause, so they can't do anything unless he agrees to it.
Yeah, and with that being said, if he doesn't want to, that's fine. I just find it hard to imagine that he would, sure, this year it's easy to say, I don't want to be traded, but next year, 2 years down the road, if he even is still a competent goalie, which is a big question mark.
Yeah, and at that point, it's like, do you want to go to a contender and win a cup as their backup? Or do you want to do it while you're still one of the best goalies in the league and can backstop a team to a Stanley Cup?
Yeah, I think that's the part that I look at. I'm like, I'm not going to sit here and question his decisions, but if it was me, I could see making this decision to say, okay, I'm going to stay here. I want to be a lifelong New York Ranger, and then 2 years down the road, maybe regret it a little bit.
Yeah, probably. I mean, like, I don't know what they would do if they traded Lundqvist. They'd have to sign a goalie.
Oh, absolutely.
Because I don't see anyone in their any good goalie prospects coming up. Yeah,
there's not a whole lot going there, and they've traded away a lot of their pieces. They've had some good backup goaltenders, and they've cycled through those because they have Henrik Lundqvist. They don't need anyone else. So
yeah. I'm curious to see. Like, I thought the quotes were interesting about Rick Nash maybe coming back next year, signing as a UFA. Because if you're really committing to a rebuild, why would you sign 33, 34-year-old Rick Nash to another multi-year deal? So I thought that was interesting.
I don't see why Rick Nash would want that. He's in the same boat. He's been a good player for so long. Go to a contender, try to win something instead of... He has no connection to the Rangers. He's been there for what, 3 or 4 years?
Yeah. 2012, I think he got traded.
Yeah. Lots to happen here with the Rangers, but they are the latest team welcoming into the Elimination Station. Next week it gets a little tougher, unless some team is super terrible or just trades everything. I think a team that we're potentially going to be looking at, Thomas Greiss down for the New York Islanders. So unless they go out and pick someone up, they've really been in great need of help in that.
That's got to be a good thing for them, right?
It maybe can't hurt. Yeah.
I don't know how their goaltending could get any worse. I almost feel bad for them.
Yeah. We've seen as long as they've been playing this year, it's a rough go. And I don't know. We'll see. Maybe they try to make one last desperate push for John Tavares here, to try to just keep him around, do whatever it takes to make the playoffs, to prove to him that you don't suck.
Nah, I don't think he's going anywhere.
Probably not either. But We have, you may have met Joel before. He is a rabid Toronto Maple Leafs fan who really wants John Tavares on his team. So, there's at least 50% of this show on most nights that, definitely thinks he's heading out of town. So Matt, our New York Islanders friend from, Reasons Are Several, will be very glad to hear your take that he's staying. So
can't Leafs fans just be happy with Austin Matthews? Why do you need more?
It's a great question. It is. Joel as well, he did mention to me, that if you were going, you seemed a little fired up there, which reminded me of the Rant Shack, which Joel said he took the key with him and you weren't allowed to rant about the Leafs. He was very explicit. Nick is not allowed in the Rant Shack to complain about the Leafs. So you'll have to do it. Oh, you can still rant. It's just not in there. It's locked up tight.
Oh man, I was so fired up last night. I had 2 Leafs fans in the same room as me chirping me. And then it had to be Austin Matthews. It's always Austin Matthews.
It always is. Yeah. I'm sorry, Nick. If it helps.
Okay.
If it helps, my Colorado Avalanche lost to the Oilers yesterday and lost 2 defensemen in the process. So, it's a rough time.
Yeah, that's not good for them, eh? You guys, they might be coming up soon on the, Elimination Station.
I think so, especially so, cause next week, trade deadline, but I will be seeing them in Calgary on Saturday. And so, depending on the product that they put on the ice, I might be sad enough to just put them in there immediately without caring what Joel says. So,
hey, this is we're going on a bit of a tangent, but how are you liking that Samuel Girard that you guys got from the Preds? Is he looking good?
Yeah, he's a 19-year-old defenseman, so I have to keep my expectations a little bit low, but because he came in with a flash. But he's actually, what's really interesting is he has taught almost the entire Avalanche defense core to do these spin moves. So like he's up against the boards in his own zone, in the offensive zone. He's doing spin moves all over the place. And the rest of the team, no one did it before him. The entire team is now doing it. So it's interesting. They that's a thing we can do. And they've just all started to do it. So, and it works. He literally does it at least once a game. And the first time I did it when they were over in Sweden playing against the Sens, I was like, what are you doing? You don't do that. And, it works great. Gets guys off of him. So,
probably learned it from Patrick Roy when he used to do that spin move at the blue line.
Must have been.
It must have been that.
So yeah, no, I really enjoyed him. 19 years old. So lots to come out of him. And, he's not Matt Duchene. So.
Yeah, that's a good thing.
Yeah. So, it's time to pick our Pavel Bure must-watch games of the week. Nick, you are an avid high-sticking player, former champion.
Love it, yeah.
You teased the fact earlier today that you might let people in on your trick. So for those who haven't been a winner of the high-sticking before, do you want to give a little insider information, or are you keeping that close to the vest?
Oh, no, I'll happily share my high sticking strategy because I think it is the best strategy out there for high sticking. It doesn't always work. Most of the time I'd say it doesn't work. But the best strategy for high sticking is to have no strategy for high sticking. Sometimes feels like you want to pick the star players. Yeah, pick Crosby and Ovechkin. But sometimes if you really need to pull ahead, go after those third line guys. Chris Tierney's a favorite pick of mine for San Jose. So really mix it up, have a look at the lineups, and don't think about it too much. That's my personal strategy. I can't even remember who I picked today.
That's a great pick. I believe you picked, I want to say Nick Ritchie, potentially.
No, I picked Ricard Raquel.
Ah, there you go.
Just because I heard he was good lately.
See, that's all the strategy that you need to be good at high sticking.
That's it.
Yeah. So actually today's high sticking game is just about to get fired up here. So we'll, once this game is done, you pick Jonathan Marchessault and Ricard.
Yeah. I love Jonathan Marchessault.
You also, do you know how to spell Marchessault, or do you Google it when you pick him for high sticking?
No, I just guess it. Is that right? Did I spell it right?
I have no idea.
I don't know. I spell guys' names wrong all the time.
There's a lot of vowels in there that look right, and a lot of not vowels. So yeah, sure, let's go with that.
Marchessault.
You nailed it.
I don't know.
Thank you. It. Yeah, that would honestly be, I think if I were to be a high sticking player, I would pick players based on, can I spell it? And are they good? That would be my criteria. So, there'd be, some guys would be like, no, I'm not picking you. I know how to spell Ovechkin. Let's go with that.
Sometimes I pick it so early in the morning and I feel so dumb. I'm like, I can't think of a single player on the Washington Capitals other than Ovechkin. And I look at the lineup and I'm like, of course, Nicholas Backstrom, Evgeny Kuzak, like TJ Oshie. How am I not thinking of these guys?
Yeah. That's very, you get them in nice and early, but have you had your coffee most days?
Most days, yeah. But that's because I set my coffee maker to go off 10 minutes before I wake up. So it's just from the bed to the coffee.
See, here's a little insider information. When we send out the high sticking tweets in the morning, we have not had our coffee. And so if there's ever anything weird, and there is, not, I won't say frequently, but there's weird things. I've tweeted out games that don't happen, teams that aren't playing at all, the wrong days games, things like that. That is 100% why, because it's 7 a.m. in the morning on the train. So
yeah, sometimes you tweet it from your personal account and everyone's confused.
Yeah, the rare people who are following my personal account start sending them to me. I'm like, I can't help you. I'm sorry. But Nick, you get to have a little tip. So if you're like, who I've always wanted to play in high sticking, these guys, you get to have a say. So we're going to pick our Pavel Bure must-watch games of the week. What these are: Pavel Bure, great player, must-watch player. These are the games that we think you should watch every night. If you head over to Twitter, follow at Fourth Line Podcast, my personal account, I'm not going to tweet them out unless I'm really, really tired. Follow over there. Every day we tweet it out. You can post who you think, one player from each team who you think is going to score the game-winning goal. If you're right, you get points. You win just like Nick does, and you can be there. Winner of this month, or leader this month, is Ken. He is currently sitting at, he's leading Nick by a few points. He's sitting at 12 points. Nick, 3.
Just a few points.
just a couple points for Nick. I just realized actually that I did not check last night's Stars Sharks game though. So we'll see when we finish the show. I'll hand out those points. Do you recall who you picked? This could be the first. Oh, there you go.
I probably picked Chris Tierney for the Sharks, maybe Hurdle, and for the Stars. Normally, I always pick Seguin for the Stars just because we share a name. So why not?
That's a great reason. Well, Chris Tierney did not have anything on the game winner. Michael Bacher from Yannick Hansen and Justin Braun.
Yeah, definitely didn't pick any of those guys.
There you go. I'm fairly certain that was a shutout on high sticking last night, but we will see what happens in tonight's Ducks Knights game.
Wait, can you pick a goalie on high sticking for a shutout?
So the way it would work is you would have to pick, I think we've never sorted it out. If you pick a goalie, I assume that you're going to have, like you're picking him as an assist, which has happened. There's I believe, Mike Laybourne, not former Detroit Red Wing fan, current Mike, I'm sorry. We did not denounce your Red Wingness. He ran the numbers, and I think it's 0.1% or 1% of game-winning goals have had in the NHL this year have had a goalie point on it. So we've got a 1% chance.
That's commitment to the high sticking cause, running those numbers.
Yeah, he knows his stuff. He's curious.
Wow.
So, do you have the schedule pulled up for the week?
I do.
All right. Do you have a game for tomorrow night that you think is a must-watch game?
Must-watch. Probably Tampa, Washington looks like the most interesting.
Yeah, that's the one I'm looking at too. So Tampa, Washington, Tuesday night. That is game number 1. Another game, good game. Blues Sharks.
Yeah, that's the other one I was looking at.
The other one that could be a good game tomorrow. Wednesday night, we have only 3 games, and only 2 of those games contain playoff teams. The only one that has teams in playoff contention, the Calgary Flames, make their maiden voyage down to Vegas. And being from Calgary, I know multiple people who are making the trip down there, especially it's reading break here in Calgary at the university. So
oh, nice.
It's a nice, college students heading down to Vegas. That's happening this week. That would be my pick for Wednesday night. Flames and Knights.
I like it.
What do you got for Thursday? Anything stand out to you there?
Ooh, Thursday is a big night in the NHL. Let's see here. You want to do the Colorado Edmonton rematch?
I'd rather forget that one. If we're going a Colorado game, I'd probably save it for Saturday, which means the Flames do get twice this week. I also don't think people should watch that game. If it's the Avalanche minus all their defense.
San Jose Nashville might be interesting.
Yeah, I think that would be interesting. The last 2 Western Conference champions facing off against each other.
Yeah, I like it.
All right, that's it for Wednesday. Friday night, we have, a surprisingly large Friday schedule, 5 games going on. The opening day of spring training, if you're a baseball fan. So baseball starts up on Friday. My go-to game for that day would probably be, Carolina, Pittsburgh. However, I'm fairly certain with the run the Pens are on right now, that I would be watching that in hopes that Pittsburgh or Carolina could win. And the way Carolina works, I think for a big game like that, they might actually do well. They put up duds against teams that they should beat and play well against teams they shouldn't. So, that would be mine. Is there anyone that you like a little better than that?
I think I kind of like Winnipeg St. Louis a little better. Just because of how good the Jets have been. What day is this? Friday?
Yeah, it's Friday.
Okay, so Friday, whichever one we pick, I will actually watch this high-sticking game, and I will live tweet it. So do you guys come tweet along with me?
There you go. So yeah, let's
go. Let's go Pittsburgh, Carolina.
Yeah, you want that one? All right.
I love me some Phil Kessel.
As you should. If people want to follow Nick on Twitter, we'll give it out at the end of the show as well. But at Nick Seguin 19 is where you can find him.
That's right.
So yeah,
Friday night,
Pittsburgh,
Carolina.
Pittsburgh and Carolina. I will, unless something happens that I'm not, as is the case usually, I'll be watching that one as well. This is Saturday afternoon. Lots of two Saturday afternoon games. We've got the Sens playing early, Calgary playing a little later, Toronto, Boston in the evening, and then the late game on Hockey Night in Canada is LA and Edmonton. It's just a weird slate. I guess not a weird slate, but a full slate of hockey for Hockey Night in Canada this week. And as well, I think for me, Joel and I have a solid no Boston rule.
Oh.
The downside is that is literally the best game of the day.
It is. And it's a possible first round playoff matchup or second round.
So Joel's not here to tell me not to pick it. So we're going to go ahead and I think we should pick Toronto-Boston.
Good. I'm still mad at the Leafs from last night, so I'll happily do that to Joel.
Okay, excellent. So Toronto and Boston is the game on Saturday. The first game that Boston has been selected in high sticking this year. So celebrate, Bruins fans. We get a lot of disappointed people out there saying we don't pick Boston, but there you go. We just did it. Sunday. This is your last chance to pick the Red Wings in this slate. Last day before the trade deadline. Do you want to?
I mean, I feel bad making people talk about the Red Wings. Detroit, New York, 2 rebuilding teams fighting for the basement. I don't know. I mean, it's other than St. Louis, Nashville, it's probably one of the... There's not that many interesting games that day.
Let's go with it. Detroit doesn't get a lot of love we'll see what everyone picks. Let's see who they can remember is on the team at 7 a.m. when they make their picks.
on a Sunday, because we're all up at 7 a.m. on a Sunday.
Aren't you? Nick, I'm 30 years old now. I get up very early. Yeah,
that's right. You just had a birthday. Happy birthday.
Thank you. Yeah. Monday night we have another slew of games. Joel does not like it when we pick Toronto and Tampa as well. But again, it's going to lose. So Monday night we will be picking, in the midst of everything happening with the trade deadline that day, we will also be following and picking our games for Toronto and Tampa. Another good game that night, however, is Washington Columbus. That'll be a good test. Columbus needs to fight their way back into a playoff spot, and it is not looking super good for them right now. So Nick, anything else you want to talk about before we wrap this bird up?
Yeah, I have some breaking news to announce on the podcast.
I literally see you holding up a picture of a goaltender. What is happening?
Yeah, the Detroit Red Wings have traded goalie Petr Mrazek to the Philadelphia Flyers for a conditional 4th-round pick in the 2018 NHL entry draft and a conditional 3rd-round pick in the 2019 NHL entry draft.
Well, when I presume, that's right now.
That was 4 minutes ago.
So without us, I don't know the conditions on that. I don't know if you know the conditions on that.
No, they're not out yet.
What are your initial thoughts on that trade?
I mean, I was of the camp that I would have rather kept Mrazek, but I'm glad that they got something for him. Frankly, as a Red Wings fan, I'm just happy they're doing something.
Yeah, so you're content with a 3rd and a 4th back from Mrazek?
Depending on the conditions, and we'd have to look into it a bit. It's more than what was initially asked for. So yeah, I think that's an okay deal for the Red Wings until we find out what the conditions are.
Well, I personally, I would have expected a little bit more back, but again, the goalie market is what it is. It's
a tough market out there, and Mrazek he's not the most highly regarded player out there, so.
Yeah, well, there you go. So Petr Mrazek off to the Flyers. Thank you, Nick, for bringing some breaking news. We will let you go and look into this more. I'm sure you've got to do some
writing to do.
Do some writing over at Wings Nation. So if you want to know more, when Nick does some more research and fully fleshes out his thoughts on this, head over to Wings Nation and get that. But why don't you let everyone know what you got going on over there?
Yeah, so follow us on wingsnation.com. We cover everything Detroit Red Wings and their AHL affiliate Grand Rapids Griffins. So, breaking news, but also some analysis, opinion pieces, our thoughts. Come and read about it. You can follow us on Twitter at The Wings Nation, and you can follow me on Twitter as well at Nick Seguin 1919.
There you go. So, Nick, thank you very much for coming on the show. As always, great to have you. Reminder for everyone from last week's show, we mentioned the podcasting event happening in Calgary. If you head over to our Twitter, we have a special code that you can have. So, Alberta Podcast Network is part of putting on a podcasting event here in Calgary, alongside some folks from Mount Royal University, as well as Media Lab YYC. So they're putting that on. February 25th, the name of the event is How to Start a Podcast from Notion to Reality, albertapodcastnetwork.com/events, or our Twitter feed where you can sign up as well. We've got a link there for you. We'll post that throughout the week. Nick, thank you for coming on. You can find us at the Twitters at Fourth Line Pod. Is that right? Is that our thing?
I don't know.
Okay. Yes. I think you're right. At Fourth Line Podcast on Twitter, thefourthlinepodcast.com. Mike Laybourne. We didn't talk about it this week because quite literally, maybe we'll talk about it last week. Olympic hockey, not that exciting for us. We've realized, it's shocking that when the best players in the world aren't there, we don't really care.
Yeah. Very surprising.
But he has been watching. He has a piece up there. You can go and find out what's been missing so that you can get up to speed. Russia is still good, apparently.
Yeah.
So
I'd like to endorse that piece. I read it today and it was very good. So go read Mike's piece.
Excellent. Thank you. Thanks for the shout out. Fourth Line Podcast, Facebook.com/The Fourth Line Podcast. And we will be back next week, trade deadline day, February 26th. We will be here bringing you everything that you will need to know. And until then, I feel like I'm missing something, but I don't know what it is, so I'll remember it when we finish recording. Nick, thanks for being on.
Could it be Boom City?